Welcome back to the Week 9 Power Rankings. So, unfortunately, this website that I made this tier list on is not letting me load my profile to look at Week 8 to kind of compare. But we'll go through what I have so far, and I'll try to remember like different teams I moved around. But we'll look here at this first screen. So, from 32 to 23, have some decent amount of movement. So have the Panthers still at the bottom. I don't think that's a very controversial take. Titans, I moved them down a bit because they are pretty horrendous, and it would be pretty interesting to see how bad they would play against the Panthers. Panthers probably still lose to them. They probably still lose to some FCS football teams, but it might be a bit too dramatic. The Panthers are bad. Titans are really bad. The Jets, I don't know. They lost to the Patriots, and they're not looking good right now. I think they're definitely a candidate if there's any of these three to jump up, but they got to start winning, and Aaron Rodgers just has to stop looking like a 40-year-old person and stop looking washed. But unfortunately, that's probably not going to be the case. So they might just be chilling around there, and Rodgers might be the Minnesota's quarterback next year if previous storylines replay. Raiders, Patriots. I didn't really move them around too much. The Patriots, I moved up above the Jets just because they beat the Jets. I think they're a well-coached team. Drake May's hurt, so it's hard you can't really move them up anymore. That they're still a bad football team. Saints are down here. Everyone's hurt, and they're just losing every football game. So it's hard to really put them any higher than where they are here. Same with the Cowboys. Cowboys stink. Jerry Jones went all in and made a horrendous football team. He keeps signing old running backs, and it's not working. His quarterback's not really good. They have one good receiver and a phenomenal kicker, but they're not a good football team at all right now. Maybe they figure things out, and maybe I'll grow 3 to 4 additional inches and finally be 6'3" like my dad, but I'm not quite holding my breath for that kind of thing to happen. I actually view the Giants as slightly better than the Cowboys, but it's pretty much a wash with that. It's not really much of a difference there. Basically, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets beat the Cowboys, but at the same time, Cowboys should beat a team like the Giants. But with how bad the Cowboys have been playing, they could lose to a lot of teams in the NFL right now. Jacksonville's still down here. They played well against the Packers for the most part, but they have just lost so much this year, and I just don't really trust them to continue to do anything well. And they just lose a lot, so you can't really move teams up when they're losing. Dolphins, I believe they just lost. I think Tua's good. I think he's fine as long as he doesn't dive into people's kneecaps and concuss himself. I think as long as he continues to slide and not try to knock himself out by diving forward into defenders, I think they'll be a candidate to move up a lot. They just have to kind of put it all together. They've lost a lot, so it's hard to... They just don't have any momentum on their side, essentially. If they start winning, Tua stays healthy, then they'll be good. I just have this weird feeling that the Dolphins, their season hinges on Tua being healthy, and all it takes is just one hit because he has noodles for neck muscles, and his head just flops around and just breaks on everything. And I wish for his sake he would just retire, and I unfortunately think it will take an additional concussion to get him to consider that. And you just hate to see it. You hope he makes a smart decision and just stops playing football. It's just not worth it getting your head bashed in when you have millions and millions of dollars. But I get it. He's a competitive person. He's worked his whole life for football. So on one hand, I don't blame him, but you just hope for the sake of his actual brain that he would just say, all right, it's enough. But maybe he's lucky and stays healthy, but he stayed healthy for a while until he dove into someone's leg and concussed himself. But you never know. Maybe he does figure it out. Hopefully he just stays healthy, for better or for worse, whether it's him playing quarterback or not. Hopefully he does stay healthy. Okay, I don't need that notification right now. Colts, I got slightly above the Dolphins, but if Tua's healthy and Tua's playing well, they're obviously going to move above the Colts. It's just hard right now. The Colts aren't the worst team. They're certainly in the bottom third. That's why I have them here at 22nd. But I definitely could swap them with the Dolphins. It wouldn't be, I don't think, a very controversial thing to move the Dolphins above them, especially with Tua back. But I just need to see more from the Dolphins. I definitely think that they could move up in future weeks for sure. The Bears, I don't know where I had them last week. I felt like I had them higher, moved them down. They're not on a good offense right now. They're not well coached. To coach a Hail Mary that poorly and lose a game is an indictment on your coach and how well it is a team is prepared. When you have a guy that's during a play turning around taunting the opposing team, and then your team gives up a Hail Mary, that's just poor coaching and a poor culture that the coach has. And unfortunately for the Bears, they don't have that good coach. They'll need to fire this coach in order to actually have a chance to continue to develop Caleb Williams. They really should have done it in this previous offseason and just started fresh with a new quarterback and a new coach. But unfortunately, they decided to stick with the coach for one more year for whatever reason. I guess they just wanted to waste a year of development for the quarterback. But that is a very Bears decision, and very similar to the Bears. You have the Browns, who I moved up tremendously. I believe, well, I definitely know where I had them. I had them way down here, I believe at 30 or 29. Moved them all the way up to 20 because of how good they actually look when they have a team that plays behind a guy that they believe in. When you see Watson playing and you see how lackadaisical and how terrible the team looks, it wasn't suddenly that everyone on the team became a bad player, couldn't catch the ball, couldn't block or anything. It's mostly just an effort thing, whether it's conscious or subconscious. You know, the thought is, well, they're always trying. They're professional athletes. But if you know your quarterback's trash, you're not going to try as hard, whether you want to or not. When you know that the guy cannot make any passes, that he continues to make mistakes, he continues to suck week after week after week. And it's not, there wasn't flashes of Watson. The most flash he had was in the last game before his Achilles exploded. And it wasn't a great flash. He looked bad at the beginning of that game. So it was just going to be more of the same of him just being really terrible and worse than a lot of these teams. And honestly, the Watson injury kind of just shows how good the coaching and how good the team of the Browns is when you just throw in Winston and he's able to throw for a bunch of yards without interceptions. And you could say like, oh, you know, some of the interceptions were dropped or whatever, but like he didn't throw any. He threw over 300 yards. So even if he threw that pick at the end of the game, I think it's pretty evident that he is a tremendously better option than Watson ever would or will be for the Browns. And hopefully Winston, if we're lucky, will have a Geno Smith type renaissance where he's able to come back and start playing really well. I don't necessarily think that would be a far-fetched thing to happen. Winston played well in the past, and he has a lot of potential. I don't say that because he's like in his early 30s, but there's a lot of upside with him. It's not as if he can't play the quarterback position. It's a lot of his decision making that's bad. And if the coaching of the Browns is good, as it appeared to be against the Ravens and with Joe Flacco last year, you're able to put a quarterback that's slinging the ball around in good situations to where that gunslinger mentality. And Joe Flacco, ironically, is very similar to Winston in that regard, where he's just going to throw the ball in the places, whether the guy's open or not, and just try to make the throws. It seems like that kind of quarterback might work for the Browns for whatever reason, and at least makes for fun football to watch. And I think that's the most exciting thing as a Cleveland fan. Even if they don't do anything more this year, if they lose the rest of the games, at least with Winston, you have it's more watchable, and you can actually root for the guy. With Watson, I was hoping the Browns would just continue to suck with him, so they would be forced to get rid of him. Now it's like you kind of want to root for Winston. You want him to play well. You want the team to play well. And I didn't like rooting against the Browns, being a Browns fan, but it just seemed like the last 3 or 4 weeks, like the correct position to have for the rest of the year, as long as Watson was in, to just want them to lose, because he was clearly he's clearly washed, even without, even with both Achilles functioning. He was clearly just a different quarterback, whether it was mentally or physically, probably most likely a combination of both. But the Browns got a blessing in disguise. They'll get some of that money back through insurance, it seems, and have the perfect excuse never to play him again, because he's clearly never, he's just never going to come back to, at best he's going to come back to the level that he currently was at, which is horrendous. And I don't think the Browns will do that. But being a Cleveland fan, me saying that, that's using logic and reason. So they'll most likely try to start him and play him next year, halfway through the year, and he'll just ruin the next season too, which would be the most Cleveland thing to do. I still have the Bengals slightly above the Browns. I think that if Winston keeps playing how he is or how he did against the Ravens, I don't think it's very shocking if I would move them up even more, because the Ravens are a really good football team, and the Browns looked like a playoff caliber team. The problem with the Browns right now is they have 6 losses, so that's going to be the biggest thing holding against them. But because this is kind of like a new season for them, they might start playing a lot better football. Even if they're not a playoff contending team, they could be a really dangerous team for a lot of teams down the stretch to play, because they'll have a team that's trying really hard and actually buying into a quarterback and just the whole system that's behind him, which is, a good thing to see. Certainly makes for more interesting football to watch. Above them, I have the Chargers, Buccaneers, and Rams, and Broncos. And honestly, with those 4 teams, I could kind of move them around in or just wherever in that kind of slot. But I kind of view that as pretty accurate for them. They can move up or down, in these subsequent weeks if they continue to win or if they're healthy. It's like the Buccaneers, they're just not healthy. The Rams, they're just not, they're hard to really tell because they'll be, they'll play really well and then they'll get hurt and then lose. And it's just, they're kind of up and down all the time. The Broncos, as long as Bo Nix continues to play pretty decent, they'll be a pretty average team. I just think because they're in the division with the Chargers and the Chiefs, it's just an uphill battle for them to be like an actual playoff caliber team. But I could see them being like a wild card team towards the end of the year, but kind of need to see more from them, more consistency against some better teams, and more offense from them to really move them into the top part, closer to the top 10. Still got the Seahawks, Cardinals. I moved Minnesota down. I moved the Cardinals up a bit, the Seahawks down a bit, I believe, and Minnesota down, the 49ers down a little bit. The 49ers, they're just all just injured, and I kind of still believe the coaching's good, Purdy's good, all of that. They just got to be healthy. The Minnesota, I think it's just the beginning of the end. They're just gonna probably lose another game in a row, or maybe even 4, and just kind of just fall off pretty hard because Sam Darnold's just not the answer. He's not playing bad or anything necessarily at this point, but he's been a backup for many years, and he just hasn't. I don't think he'll ever really figure it out, but maybe I'll be wrong on that, and they'll jump back up. But it's not good to lose 2 in a row, of course, but they're still 5-2. So there's still, a lot of upside to their season. And hopefully Sam Darnold does figure it out, because he does seem like a nice guy. So you don't want him to, not have success. It's just hard to believe in someone that's struggled for much of his career to find any level of success. But Baker Mayfield is down in Tampa for the most part. And now Sam Darnold is. So apparently if you can go through Carolina and survive, then you might turn out on the other end on a good side. The Cardinals are a pretty solid team. It's hard to really tell where they really stand. They continue to win, and they continue to look pretty decent. Kyler looks pretty good. So if they continue to win, they could be kind of like a Seahawks type team where they're not really going to go deep in the playoffs, but they could make the playoffs themselves, especially in the kind of division that they're in, if everyone's just kind of unhealthy in that division. So it's kind of a hard thing to tell with that. I forget. I think it's the Cardinals, Seahawks, and 49ers, and someone else. I don't know who else is in their division. I forget, but it's not really that important. Maybe they're above it. Maybe it's the Rams. Maybe that's the other team. I don't really pay too much attention to their division, to be frank, as far as the actual standings. Just kind of see some of the games. But Eagles in the top 10, they beat the Bengals. I kind of view the Bengals as a pretty decent team. The Bengals are kind of similar to the Browns in the sense that their record's so bad right now, even though with the Browns, they only have a sample size of 1, so it's hard to move them up any more than they were, and 20 is probably too high for them. It's more of me being a homer for them. The Bengals have played pretty decent this year. They just keep losing games, and they just aren't winning. The defense isn't doing enough for them, so it's hard to really trust the Bengals, unfortunately. And the Eagles, they have a lot of talent. They've played well this year, and they beat the tar out of the Bengals, so it was certainly a good win from them. Texans, I still got up here. I think they're still a good team. I think CJ Stroud's a really good quarterback. I think he's kind of like the next, I don't say next Patrick Mahomes, but he's kind of like the next generation of really good quarterbacks. I think the same with Jaden Daniels. You can kind of see the W up there. I'll wait before I scroll it up because I'll probably show a couple different teams. But there's certainly some young guys in the league that are going to be the next generation of really great quarterbacks. Josh Allen, I think, is still in that category. Patrick Mahomes, honestly, he's not that old, so he's still in that category. But as far as like brand new rookie quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud, I definitely think are in that that top level of elite type talent, which would be nice if the Browns ever had. But unfortunately, we don't get quarterbacks like that. And if we do, we release them like Baker Mayfield. Granted, I don't think Baker's on their level, but certainly better than Watson ever did. So would have been a lot cheaper to keep him, but that's neither here nor now. So moving up a little bit, got the Commanders up there. I believe I don't know if I dropped them spots. I don't really know where I had them last week, but honestly, they lost to the Bears. If the Bears weren't so poorly coached and managed, then they would have just lost that game. You shouldn't win games on Hail Marys and be rewarded for that. It's essentially a loss as far as like how good your team is. It's just a really lucky play. It could really honestly move both of these teams above the Commanders, but I don't know. 8 seems relatively fair because their record's still really good. Their division's kind of all over the place. The Giants are bad, the Cowboys are bad, and the Eagles are good. So it's hard to really tell. And I don't say that as like the Commanders are bad or anything. I think they're still a good football team, but the Bears, that's not a good team to almost lose to. I think the Bears are still. Once they get rid of Eberflus, then they'll be a good football team. But once they as long as they have him, then they're just going to be limited with how well they're coached. That's really, honestly, one of their biggest limitations right now. Above the Commanders have the Falcons. Falcons are in a really weak division. The Buccaneers are injured all over the place. The Saints are just in the tank right now, and the Panthers are a JV high school football team at this point. So the Falcons have a really easy path to the playoffs. So it's hard to really move them any lower than where they're at, and not just continue to move them up because they just keep winning and they're in a weak division. So they do have some free wins in that regard. Moving above them, I moved the Ravens down to 6. Actually below the Steelers, and I went back and forth on this a couple times, but honestly, putting the Steelers and Ravens together, I think it would be a slugfest. If I had to pick between the two, I probably would still pick the Ravens to beat the Steelers, but the Steelers practice witchcraft, so they would probably be able to win. I don't know what they did, if they have like cut the head off a chicken or something to make Russell Wilson suddenly be a good quarterback, or if they just have that magical system that somehow makes bad quarterbacks good, but they somehow have won games with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson when nobody could last year. So they certainly are doing things that are probably illegal in a lot of states, but they seemingly keep getting away with it. So I think that they probably would beat the Ravens, even though all logic says the Ravens are a better team, just because the Steelers defy logic and also good football to watch. But above them, you can kind of see the top 4 here. I have the Packers still. I think they finally have a kicker, which is probably a bigger deal than a lot of people are making it to be. But having a kicker that can make kicks is a pretty critical thing when you want to be an elite football team. And so having them winning back-to-back weeks with game-winning kicks is big. Jordan Love, it doesn't seem like he's going to be injured for very long, so I think having him up at 4, and honestly, Malik Willis has come in and looked good. So even if they had to go to Malik Willis for another game or two, I think they're still kind of in that top level of play. And with Minnesota starting to fall off, I think it's hard to really put Minnesota anywhere near the Packers right now. I think the Packers would beat them pretty handily, but maybe I just watched too much Tom Grassi, and maybe I just like the Packers too much as a result of that. But above them, I have the Bills. And the Bills, they're just a good football team. So it's hard to, it's hard to put them above the Chiefs or the Lions, but I still have a lot of faith in the Bills, and their division is seemingly getting weaker by the day. So they're kind of in a position of the Falcons where their division's so weak, they're going to get some free wins, but the Bills by themselves are a good football team and would be in any division that they're in. Chiefs are still undefeated, but they're just, I don't know. I just don't like the Chiefs, I guess. Maybe that's the biggest reason, but honestly, I think the Lions are a better football team right now. And this is power rankings, not the actual rankings, of course. So I think the Lions are playing better football in general right now. And I think, head-to-head playoffs, I would hope that the Lions would win. Chiefs, kind of like the Steelers, practice a lot of witchcraft. So it's hard to not think that the Chiefs would win with all their past success. But we can only hope that they start to fall off because parity is important in the NFL. And you hate to see the same team win it every year, especially with someone like the Chiefs. Not that I necessarily have any issue with Patrick Mahomes, really good quarterback, but the less Taylor Swift that I see in my life, the absolute better. So it's a big reason why I think most people want the Chiefs, or should want the Chiefs to lose, is to see less of T Swift, because that just makes everyone's lives better. So honestly, I'm rooting for all 31 other teams other than the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, because I know it won't be the Browns, but maybe miracles could happen. Certainly weird things that happen in sports, just not with Cleveland teams. But anywho, those are my power rankings for week 9. So I'll see if I can continue to do this week to week. Maybe I release this on Tuesdays or Wednesdays or whatever. We'll kind of see. just kind of by feel, and if I feel like doing it. But if you made it to this point of the video or at any point, I appreciate it, and feel free to check out my other lifting stuff because I'm hitting some good weights now. Lifting's going well. Just it's going a lot better than the Browns are going right now. Although with the Browns' big win, maybe I can start comparing my lifting to the Browns if they both are going in a positive direction. So hopefully the Browns are breaking the top 10 next week with another big win. Probably not. I forget who they even play, but Winston's going to throw 8 picks, and we're going to be down in the dumps again. But for now, I can at least have him up a little bit and it be logical in a sense. But anywho, that's it for this one. I'll talk to you on the next video, and I hope you all have a great day. Peace.